like scary movies?
I'm getting ready to watch a video.
You making popcorn? What's your favorite?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. Talk to me. Talk to me.
Hi, everybody. I'm George, and welcome to another episode of the Best Little Horror House in Philly, the show where we talk about the best horror movie ever made, according to our guest, at least. And you might have seen our guest on Good Mythical Morning. He's the creator of the podcast Bubble and the co-author of its Eisner-nominated adaptation, plus the Jordan half of Jordan Jesse Go. Please welcome the very funny Jordan Morris.
Hi, great to be here.
Yes, very excited to have you. Big fan of your work. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your history with horror?
Sure, yeah. So I grew up in, the 80s and 90s and was going to high school, around 95, 96. And up until then, I was just a horror baby. Hated it. We never put it on around the house growing up. Whenever something was on at a sleepover, I would, ask to leave. I would hide. I would, try and distract people into doing something else. I really distinctly remember being at a sleepover and someone putting on Poltergeist, and Poltergeist just scaring the tar out of me. and looking back, that is a pretty cheesy movie.
Right.
If you've never seen a horror movie before, it is absolutely terrifying. I was so scared of getting it sucked into the TV every time the TV was turned to static. Trees bothered me, clowns bothered me after that. Yeah, a lot of spooky weirdness in that movie that in hindsight is actually kind of cheesy and funny.
It leaves a mark for sure, especially if you're in the right age bracket for it.
Totally,
it's so perfectly targeted for children to be terrified of.
Yeah, it is almost what would scare a kid?
Yeah.
And let's put it all in this movie.
Right, especially because they're not usually, I feel like, the ones who are actually in peril. It's usually the parents or whatever. And so for the kids to be like, uh-oh, it's the parents working to save this kid who got sucked into the TV. That could be me.
And the fact that you don't really know what's going on with her while she's in the TV.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think you ever really find out. I don't know. I mean, there's sequels and stuff. I don't know if you ever see the ghost dimension or whatever.
I don't think so. Not in the ones I've seen.
But definitely that kind of unknown is really terrifying. But in the 90s, if my memory serves, horror was pretty niche. It was it was kind of more of a direct-to-video thing, or a thing that only hardcore nerds were into. But then Scream happened, and then it was all over movie theaters all the time. And just because going to the movies was such a big social thing for my friend group, I just had to nut up. I just had to learn to watch horror, or else I wouldn't be invited to anything. Yeah, so I just kind of white-knuckled my way through Scream and, Urban Legends and Jawbreaker and then Event Horizon and all those other kind of, 90s throwbacky kind of movies.
Yeah.
And then just grew to love it. I had a good buddy, Ryan Christian, who kind of organized all the trips out to the theaters to see these things, and he had a big horror collection. And I remember him sitting me down and just showing me, okay, here's the thing. Here it's based on an old black and white sci-fi movie. Here's Friday the 13th. You probably know Jason. He doesn't get the hockey mask till the third one. His mom's the killer's in the first one. And just kind of giving me a real crash course in horror history. And yeah, since then I've not only it's not just something I can watch, without peeing my pants, but it's something I really, really enjoy, and getting to write a little bit of horror has been a ton of fun.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. I was also a coward for much of my life,
right?
Up through high school for me. It wasn't until college that I became a horror fan.
This is a safe space to admit your former life as a coward.
That's right. I'm curious if you have a favorite subgenre, something that is more likely to be a hit for you. But then also, I'm wondering if there was one that was an easier way in for you when you were just dipping your toes into horror? And if that's changed now that you're like, oh, I'm into horror in general, I can handle the body horror instead of just slashers and stuff.
I will say that the genre that gets me the most is haunted house. It might just stem back to Poltergeist being such a big, moment in my brain, but Hereditary fucked me up. The trailers for Skinamarink fucked me up. I don't think I will ever see that movie. So that type of thing, that like there's something in the house, here's a shot of a long hallway. Those types of things really, really get me. Like Barbarian really got me. I know that's not like a haunted house, but that's a like there's something in the house.
Yeah, right. What's wrong here?
Right, exactly. So that type of stuff really gets me. But a good like entry point to horror, for me at least, and I think it relates to today's movie, is like the action horror. The like taking familiar horror trope, and here it's vampires, like zombies with the Resident Evil movies, and just applying it to like kind of cheesy action. Like I love cheese, and definitely like around, the time I was starting to get into horror, like I loved Van Damme movies. I loved Schwarzenegger movies. Your Commandos, like Tango and Cash. And since I loved that stuff, like Big Trouble in Little China was a great, like, kind of bridge movie, because there is some horror in that, but it's also kind of a cheesy, quippy action movie, and I just love it when they kind of combine those things. And it's not something you see too much of these days. It's a little bit out of fashion, but yeah, every time you can combine a little action cheese with a little horror cheese, I'm just there.
Oh, I'm totally with you. Totally with you. I did want to talk to you a little bit about comics as well, because you've got not only one, but two exciting sounding works coming out.
No, thanks.
First off, Youth Group, which seems to be a little hush-hush still, but a horror comedy with that name.
No, happy to talk about it. It's a little far out, but yes, I'm really excited about Youth Group. That is a graphic novel I just did my final proofread of recently, so happy to talk about that.
It's a very evocative name, certainly, for for people who religion has both positive and negative connotations, especially within the horror space. There are a lot of religious themed horror movies that have become such huge behemoths in like the iconography of horror.
Totally. That
sort of shifting that towards like the already unease of like being in like a teenager or whatever in a youth group. So I definitely want to hear more about that.
So Youth Group is a graphic novel coming out, I think, next year that I wrote and is illustrated by a great artist named Bowen McGurty, who has a great kind of YA horror series called Spectre Inspectors that is out now and people should really check out. And yeah, it is. I grew up in a like a hip youth group where a guy with tattoo sleeves would turn a chair backwards and tell you about a cool guy named JC that was actually a pretty great rapper himself. So that whole thing, I think, was something I haven't seen depicted in media I don't think.
Right.
So it's something I've always kind of wanted to write about because it's such a funny, weird little world. And yeah, I kind of like got the idea when I saw a news story about exorcisms being on the rise. Like exorcisms, I guess, in 2023 or whenever I was reading this article, 2019 or 2020, were like up. So like people are still doing exorcisms to this day. I'm sure people with like people who maybe need mental health treatment are getting exorcisms instead.
Right.
So I kind of thought about, the goofy youth group kids that I grew up with, and just like thinking about them doing exorcisms was really funny to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of the starting point of the idea. And, my editor, Callista Brill, over at First Second, who I did the Bubble graphic novel with, she had the great idea to set it in the 90s because it is such a kind of a personal thing for me. So we decided to kind of set the story in the 90s in Orange County, California, where I grew up. And yeah, and I got to really dump a lot of my like personal experience into this. It's a really fun book. It is for a YA audience, but I think that the horror gets across. Bowen is great with like suspense and creepy angles, and she draws a great monster. So yeah, so I hope it is both funny and horrific, maybe a little heartwarming in the end. So
wow.
Yeah, I'm excited about Youth Group and hope people check it out when the time comes.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. That exorcism angle sounds really, really fascinating, and I actually didn't know that they were on the rise. So that's very creepy that that people are still making that work for them. But the other story that you're working on, you contributed the story Soylent Teen to Pop's Chocolate Shop of Horror, part of the Archie horror line, which I'm already a fan of from the excellent Archie versus Predator.
There it is. Yes, holding up the trade on cam.
That's right.
Yeah, if so something kind of cool about the world of Archie comics that maybe you don't know if you're not a big comic shop person, or if you just, or a Riverdale fan, is that Archie Comics has this great horror line where they put those characters, Archie, Jughead, Betty, Veronica, into these like kind of insane horror scenarios. I mean, you have the one where they fight the Predator. So yeah, it's just kind of fun to that they want to play with those characters in that way, and they have all these great one shots that come out where it's just kind of a different setting or a different theme or a different vibe. Recently, they had a great Final Girls issue where, Betty is a final girl in kind of a slasher situation. And yeah, and so the one I was asked to contribute to was Pop's Chocolate Shop of Horrors. It's 3 spooky stories set in their diner. And yeah, it was really fun. They really let us go wild. I did my story with a great artist named Liana Congas, who I think comics fans will recognize. And yeah, they were just tons of fun to work with. And the Archie folks really kind of just let us do some fucked up things to their beloved characters, which I really appreciated. And we still tried to make it really funny too. We wanted to bring the horror and the jokes because, Archie is first and foremost about gags and jokes. So we wanted to have both.
Yeah, I mean, that is part of what I love about the line as well, is that they really do seem to let people kind of go off the rails with it, in that I remember when the DC universe crossed over with Mortal Kombat, and they took out the fatalities because they were like, you can't be killing the DC characters.
Yes, we don't want to see Superman's head get ripped off by Sub-Zero.
Exactly. And then, so you expect that going into something like Archie versus Predator, and then in the first dozen pages, there's literally people getting their heads and spinal cords ripped out. Like, the full Predator, they're really in the world of Predator, which is something that I really appreciate, that they're not just there in name only. Yeah, no, it is really cool, and it's nice that they kind of play fast and loose with the continuity. I think they do have some stuff that kind of carries over, and there's, continuations from some other stories occasionally, but for the most part, I think they just want to, a fun, creepy, funny story, and if a beloved main character gets their head chopped off, not a big deal. They can come back in the next issue. That's exactly it. Them's the breaks, as they say. Them's the breaks. Well, we're going to keep talking about comics, but shift from stoked to staked, because the movie we're talking about today is Blade from 1998, a stone cold classic and the first successful modern Marvel movie. This is, as I said off air, a movie that I personally love. Me too. You already discussed your passion for these action horrors, and I also really think that this is so successful at both. It is so beautifully choreographed and such a perfect action movie, but the horror elements that are in it are real. It's, again, not just like a gesture at it. There are people bleeding all over the place and getting legitimately injured. Right. It's just such a triumph of both for me. Yeah, I totally agree. And it is a little more of an action movie than it is a horror movie, but they're pretty serious about their vampire lore. They've created a cool kind of unique vampire lore specifically for the movie. Yeah, and they really take both parts of it seriously, but it is also a very funny, quippy action movie in its own way too. So yeah, it is just this soup that really works. Right. Yeah, in a way that I don't think another franchise has been able to mimic since. Right. Something I want to get your opinion on. The duo that created Blade and Deacon Frost in 1973 for The Tomb of Dracula are Gene Colan and Marv Wolfman. Yeah. this guy's not even trying to cover up that he's a damn werewolf making anti-vampire propaganda here.
Yes, it's a slanderous tirade from a biased source. No, Marv Wolfman is a legendary comics guy. Went on to like create the Teen Titans. Yeah, and this was, and I have not read the 70s comics that introduced Blade. I think it might even be one issue. Marvel had this series called Tomb of Dracula that I have read a little bit of, and it's just kind of there, like, I think Dracula was in the public domain by that point, and they're just like, we can do it! Like, nothing's stopping us. We can just do a Dracula comic, and no one can stop us. And I think they did also have a Frankenstein thing, where they kind of, like, retold Frankenstein in comics, but then it went off into some weird directions. So yeah, this is part of this, just that, you know, kind of 70s comic. I think Blade was a vampire hunter in one issue. I don't exactly know where Deacon Frost came in.
Same issue.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So they just kind of took that and spun it off into a whole trilogy. And I think Blade has been back in Marvel Comics since, and he's definitely popped up in like the video games and stuff like that. But yeah, I think he was just kind of this obscure one-off who, you know, I'm sure it was relatively easy to make a movie about because, you know, you're not that protective of someone who's not Spider-Man or the X-Men. So yeah, I think it seems like they just had a lot of freedom to go kind of nuts. And I think that's part of what makes the movie so fun.
Yeah, Marvel was bankrupt in the mid-90s, and so they had been, you know, selling off rights left and right pretty much. And so New Line Cinemas had the rights to a bunch of their movies, including Blade. And it is kind of interesting that Blade was the first successful Marvel movie, considering, like you say, and also similar to Iron Man kicking off the MCU, Blade was a comparatively obscure character. He was in print through the 80s, but only very spottily. So it was like the 70s and then, yeah, back in the 90s. But then they also had several in the works before Blade, including Fantastic Four and The Incredible Hulk, but they just couldn't get the scripts right, basically.
Right.
And so it was only through sheer happenstance that Blade's script got there quicker and became the first one to find this success. New Line is the producer and distributor. I always have a little bit extra respect for New Line, who not only did a lot of my favorites like Lord of the Rings and Extro, but also helped legitimate outsider art like Pink Flamingos and Texas Chainsaw Massacre find a foothold on college campuses as a distributor. And so it's kind of fascinating to me that they start out, you know, creating all and distributing all this great outsider art, and then becoming this juggernaut of like what movie adaptations of comics can be. Like, David Goyer is the writer of this.
Yeah.
And I mean, not even escaping New Line, David S. Goyer has had an insane amount of influence on mainstream comic book adaptations. Totally. The Blade series, Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, several DC movies and shows like Batman Begins and Sandman. It's kind of remarkable, to be honest, what an impact he's had. Yeah,
I know. He directed the third one too, I think, right?
Yeah, he did.
Maybe I don't think anyone was saying that the third Blade movie is the high point of the franchise. Maybe some would. Maybe there are some Blade 3 stands out there. Blade Trinity, I think.
I'm sure, yeah.
The
Ryan Reynolds heads are all clamoring.
Right? Yeah, one of Ryan Reynolds' first of many comic book roles that he would go on to play. Yeah, it's so neat. It's something that's interesting about it that only occurred to me on my rewatch for this. This is in 98. The Matrix is in 99. This is before Matrix.
Oh, yeah.
And it has that aesthetic that you just associate with Matrix. A lot of leather, like Hong Kong style wire fighting.
The industrial soundtrack.
Yeah, a lot of techno. It's like, oh, this, you know, and I always kind of, in my head, I did a little retcon where I'm like, oh, Matrix came out and then every movie had this aesthetic for 10 years. No, Blade was first. Blade got to this first. And
yeah.
You know, this aesthetic hasn't aged perfectly. It's still a little cheesy. It really reminds you of the 90s, but like kind of wild that this movie not only like kind of predicted comic book movies, but beat the Matrix to this look and vibe. It's wild.
It really is. Yeah, they're kind of pulling from the similar sort of sci-fi areas that create that dark aesthetic. It's really cool. David S. Goyer also worked on Dark City, which also kind of pulls a similar aesthetic. So
okay.
he's right in there. He's definitely into it. And the idea was to come up for a script for under $10 million that would be tough and street, like the movie Juice was the quote. But by the time Goyer finished writing, it was an extremely expensive, genre-busting kung fu vampire comic book movie that was postmodern in its attempt to demystify vampires, taking them seriously as a ground-level threat instead of the gothic doomed romance like Interview with a Vampire, he said.
You know, it's interesting how you talk about this as a, like, departure for vampires. There's and I think an unintentionally funny moment in this movie where Blade is explaining to, and I forget this character's name, but she's the doctor who kind of accompanies him and is
Karen,
our kind of intro to the world. And he's like, forget everything you've seen in the movies about vampires. And then proceeds to explain the things that kill vampires that you know from movies. And I'm like, I don't know if it's that groundbreaking. I feel like the only thing they add to the mythos is like silver hurts them, which I think we know is a vampire or a werewolf thing.
Right. Crosses don't do shit.
Yeah, maybe it's just crosses don't do anything, but that's kind of it, right? Like everything, like sunlight kills them, garlic kills them, steaks kill them. I'm like, well, that's what I know from movies.
Yeah. So I shouldn't forget everything. I should forget specific thing.
Yeah, so one thing, but also the other things. He should have said, oh, the cross thing isn't real. Everything else, that's real. Everything you know from movies, do that.
It's actually a really good resource.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Watch all the vampire movies you can. It's all pretty much true. That would be kind of a funnier version of that scene. But it is kind of, you know, it is. I understand how like they're planting their flag, saying, like, you know, this ain't your grandpa's Bela Lugosi.
Exactly.
Thing, so
the studio did keep trying to interfere. They were gun shy after Howard the Duck was a flop, which did precede this movie.
Yeah,
they said things like, "Can this be a spoof?" and "Can Blade be white?" To which Goyer, this is a quote from him. He said, "Absolutely fucking not. Like, that is just terrible. You cannot do that." And he's right.
Yeah, I mean, I am a dumb white guy and not smart enough to talk about the issues surrounding this. But it does seem from my perspective that this is a pretty good, like, they do have a lot of moments where like Blade's race is important. Like it does. You know, it is part of the narrative. It's part of the character. And yeah, definitely cool that, you know, in the 90s when people weren't as concerned about diversity, that, yeah, this movie with a, mostly black leads got to get made and, you know, be such a cool success. Yeah. So from my, I don't know a lot about this perspective, pretty cool.
And so the head of New Line at the time, Mike DeLuca, said, "I'll make it for $40 million if you can get Denzel Washington, 35 if you can get Wesley Snipes, and 20 if you can get Lawrence Fishburne." And so Goyer said, "Perfect, because I'm all in on Wesley anyway." And I think that he was exactly right, because so Wesley was already interested in making a Marvel movie, although he was interested in Black Panther, and that wasn't moving forward.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so for him to then shift over to this movie, I think that he brings the exact right knowing but not ironic gravitas to it.
He's great. He's perfect. I mean, like, he is such a staple of like 90s action, and like doing that but giving it a little comic book and a little horror, like, just, you know, him tweaking that performance so slightly. He's so good. All the one-liners get me. He's so physical. I mean, in all of his movies, he does such a great job of like seeming like he's doing the fighting, and, you know, it always impresses me. Like, Demolition Man is a weird favorite movie of mine. I cannot explain why I like that movie. I just do. But yeah, he's so great in that, just because he gets that weirdo tone that they're going for. And yeah, he's so good in movies like this.
Yeah, and you know, you see his comedy chops in movies like White Men Can't Jump, but they're still on display here. You need to be able to have that perfect timing for those one-liners. And yeah, I mean, he has a ton of them in here, and they land every single time.
Yeah, it's great. Like, it's a little bit camp, but also he is fucking cool as hell. He is so fucking cool in this. It's an amazing entrance, and like the movie pays it off. Like him going into the blood rave and like wrecking shop, and as soon as he walks in, everyone's afraid of him.
Is that the Daywalker?
It's the Daywalker. And like the fact that he is able to deliver on that amazing entrance is just it's so cool. This movie never stops being cool, and like, yeah, I mean, he's basically the reason for that. I think there's some other great performances in this, but like
it rides on his shoulders for sure.
Yeah, his is just top notch.
He actually wasn't familiar with Blade going in, and so he basically decided to take this as a tribute to blaxploitation era, like Superfly and Shaft style martial arts and leather suits. Also movies I love, which probably helps to play a role in my love of this movie as well. And a big part of what I love about this movie is that it's the perfect level of ensemble to still allow a diversity of character, but also small enough to actually learn about each of them and spend time with them. I do like Blade 2 a lot, but my biggest complaint about it and what gives this movie the edge for me is that there are too many characters, and that means we don't get to spend enough time with Blade.
Yeah, I do love the supporting performances in this. Like, Chris Christopherson is so good. So grizzled, listening to, oh God, what is he listening to? Bad Moon Rising?
Yes, Creedence, of course.
There you go.
You gotta love it.
You gotta. Yeah, he's great in this, and just kind of like, doing his old Western thing, like doing, he's the the grizzled cowboy in this.
Right. The aging gunslinger handing it down.
Of course, just making this more of a genre mashup than it, than it is already. Yeah, he's awesome. When I was watching this, I'm like, young Whistler movie. Do that. Do young Whistler movie and teenage Blade.
Wow.
And do a kind of a Last of Us thing, like it's Blade's first rodeo. Whistler's teaching him the ropes.
He's still kind of feral, like they talked about.
Yeah. And God, that's also something I love about this movie is that it's not an origin. You just get dropped in, and it's just like Blade's the coolest guy around. He's been the coolest guy around forever. I know this is the first time you've seen him, but Blade has been out there fucking wrecking shop for years, and he rules.
That's right. That's exactly what that entrance does. We're all, as soon as they're all like Daywalker, we're like, oh shit, it's the Daywalker.
I know, and I don't know why more comic book movies don't learn from this. Of like, we've seen Uncle Ben die a lot. We've seen Thomas and Martha Wayne die a lot. These are cold takes.
The pearls. You got to drop the pearls.
Yes. Oh, the pearls. Oh, we just saw Zorro. What do? Let's go through Crime Alley. We've seen it, and this movie does such a great job. Like, it seems like a sequel. It just seems like Blade 5 or something. Yeah, and I know I just kind of sort of pitched doing the origin story, but I think that's part of what makes this movie so cool. Is it's just like, here's the world. It's been here forever. Welcome to it.
Hell yeah. So our main guy, Blade, is going up against Deacon Frost, played with aplomb by Stephen Dorff. Mm-hmm. He is so perfectly smarmy and seething here.
He's great.
Goyer described him as a character from a Bret Easton Ellis novel and said, everything about his performance goes counter to everything you've seen in a vampire movie before. There is nothing Baroque about him, or elegant, or Shakespearean. He's crass and visceral and all about hunger. He looks like a guy who's spent the last few nights drinking and hasn't showered nor combed his hairs and doesn't give a shit. He's completely 180 degrees from Blade, who has this quiet, dignified presence, and they work as opposites to each other. And that's exactly it. I think that because Blade is glowering and quiet and reserved, you need to have someone on the other end who is bombastic in a way that Dorff is bringing the heat for.
He's such a douchebag. He's just such a douche. And the fact that he plans raves is such a funny part of his character. Yeah, I think that there's probably a 10% more comedy version of this movie you could do where that douchebag character is blown out even more. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I love it. I mean, you totally understand why this made Stephen Dorff a kind of it actor for a hot second that I guess didn't really pay off, although I guess there's been some good Stephen Dorff performances recently.
Yeah, old Henry.
Oh yeah, I saw Old Henry. He is good in that. It's a similar character.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that movie a lot. But yeah, he just does such a great job here, and yeah, their last fight is totally amazing.
Absolutely. We have N'Bushe Wright, who does play Dr. Karen Jansen. I really like this character, not only because, of course, N'Bushe is very beautiful and talented. She's a great actor. But also, Karen is very capable. She contributes not just to the plot, but also Blade's capabilities in major ways. She develops the like explosive attempt at the cure,
right?
That is a huge deal for him, and I also love that she's just this tribute to Pam Grier. They were saying,
yeah, no, she's awesome, a really good character, and definitely like that is a type of character that I feel like we see more now, but I think at the time was probably kind of a punch in the face. I mean, yeah, she is great, and yeah, definitely like you can tell where the like, Pam Grier inspiration came in.
Yeah, for sure. And so they have the script and they have some casting, and now they're looking for a director. And the producer of the movie, Peter Frankfurt, said, "I knew David Fincher from way before. We were friends. He was finishing 7 at the time at New Line, and he read the script and he was like, 'What's going on with Blade? This is pretty good. I just have some different ideas about it.' So I said, 'David, look, I would love to have you direct this movie. You're my favorite director, but I know that you're not going to do it.' And we were and we were going into a meeting with Mike DeLuca, and he couldn't help himself. He started talking about the first act and what he wanted to do, and I could see everybody was just completely mesmerized, and I knew right then we were going to waste a year, which was basically exactly what happened."
Oh, no. So wait, there was almost a David Fincher Blade?
Yes.
I mean, I guess to hear them say it, there wasn't ever almost one. He was never going to do it. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of wild. I mean, I do think this, I wouldn't change anything about this movie, but it is kind of interesting to think about a David Fincher Blade movie. Might be kind of cool.
Definitely. And I think that it's a good sort of, I don't want to call him like an alternative, but I think that Stephen Norrington, who is the director, has a lot of influence from David Fincher. They have some similar vibes. And he said that I'd seen this movie Death Machine that this British guy, Stephen Norrington, had directed. And it's a little bit incoherent, but it's just nonstop balls to the wall. The action is insane, and he made it for nothing. So I reached out and brought him in, and he was absolutely incredible in the room. And I think Norrington is really solid with this movie. He was unfortunately put in director jail after his 4th movie, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Right.
Which was a huge flop. But I did watch Death Machine. I thought it was a lot of fun. He does a great job with this. And the producer not only gave him his props as sort of an auteur force behind this, but also cinematographer Theo Van de Sande said, "Norrington was always the motor. He had so much knowledge. He had worked with Fincher on some films and was a super visual effects maverick. He had some social qualities, yes, but I like to be challenged, and he's such a genius person. He designed almost everything by himself, storyboards, everything." And this touches on what I think is really important, is that this does let itself feel like a comic book at points, where it doesn't feel like it's ashamed of its source material. And there are times where they'll just set up a frame to look like a comic book frame, like a panel in a comic book. And having those storyboards, I think, has got to be so crucial to pulling that off, to knowing what you want it to look like going in. And I just don't know if that happens every time, because of the capabilities that they have to build things in post, that the forethought going into the choreography and everything, and in the way that it interacts with the environment, is not always there.
Yeah, no, there is some like bad 90s CGI in this movie, particularly the scene where they're fighting in the subway tunnel.
Right.
There's like these CGI trains that look like they're from a PlayStation 1 game.
Oh, they didn't do that for real?
No, yeah, actually that was CGI. You'll be shocked to know.
Oh.
It's a really fun sequence. They grind vampire faces along the side of the train. There are a bunch of vampires get squashed by the train. It's a very fun sequence, but yeah, definitely has like that bad 90s CGI. That is kind of fun actually at this point. But I know it is so like, it is such a cool movie to look at. And yeah, you're totally right about they're seeming like there's splash panels and just these little moments that look like they're straight out of a comic book in a way that's like reverential, not like, I feel like there were some comic book movies that are like, haha, we're doing panels and stuff like that, in a way that was just like, the panels aren't what we like about comic books. Like, we like that they're...
Hey, speak for yourself, Jordan. That's what I'm signing up for.
Okay, maybe there's just panel heads out there who just like various sizes of box.
Oh my God, a 3x4 in this issue.
Cool, whoa. But yeah, it is. Yeah, again, just so like forward thinking and so like ahead of its time. And yeah, it's such a bummer that the dude doesn't direct anymore. I mean, that League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie is pretty bad, but like, anyway, yeah, it's just a bummer that a guy who.
But Blade is so good.
No, it is. I haven't. What's Death Machine like? Maybe I should watch Death Machine.
Death Machine is like if you took the budget of the movie Hardware.
Maybe I don't know Hardware either.
Oh, it's like a Richard Stanley movie from Australia. It's like a I think it was like $3 million, so very low budget. And it's like if you said, I really wish that I had enough time to watch RoboCop and Aliens at the same time, but I don't have that much time, so instead I'm going to just combine them into one movie.
Right.
And so, there's a lot of fun. It's kind of silly. Brad Dourif is in it. He's always great. He's the main villain. And there's some good like technical, like practical robot stuff happening. Okay. I think it's worth a watch, especially that makes it 2 good movies for Stephen Norrington to his 1 flop. And bring him back is all I'm saying.
It's funny. I did look him up on IMDb, and he looks exactly like the kind of person who would direct this movie. He has a long white goatee and those like giant earrings, those giant like thick earrings. He just looks like a guy from a 90s rave. And I'm like, yes, of course, this is the guy who directed Blade.
Oh, yeah. He knew what he was doing. They did have to do some reshoots for the ending because they couldn't get the look quite right. But the crew was like, oh, we were stoked that they even believed in the movie enough to pay for those reshoots.
Yeah.
So it wound up costing around $50 million all in. And it did become a major success. It made $131 million at the box office, thanks in part to some wild promotion. Snipes went on Letterman as Blade.
Wow. Oh, my God. I got to find that YouTube video.
They also hosted crazy vampire parties in 15 cities. And I am so happy for it and its legacy that even with the glut of superhero movies that have come out since Blade, it still has its fan base. It's never really faded into the background. And of course, now today, it's being declared the best horror movie of all time.
That's right. I stand by it. Yeah, I know. The trilogy is so fun. I mean, I remember that third one being kind of bonkers in a less than effective way. But I do enjoy them all. And yeah, the fact that they're like, they always kind of seem to be hanging out on streaming or on cable is a great, like, yeah, just a great, like, you can tell that they're beloved. And the fact that they're always kind of trying to remake it and not really getting there is also a sign that,
definitely,
this is still a franchise people love.
Definitely. So let's get into the actual movie. It's a wash in steel blue, which I think makes the reds really pop as we rush into a hospital following a pregnant woman named Vanessa Brooks hemorrhaging on a gurney. They don't think she's going to make it as they take her crying, blood-soaked baby. Boom! Wesley Snipes credit. Big block red letter. Love it. What a great, great intro. Very stylish. This time-lapse of LA. It just totally cements like the time that you're in as we get this now. Like they don't even I guess technically now it's 2023 that this rave is taking place in because they don't ground it in the 90s, but it is funny. I do like the time capsule feeling of it.
Me too. Yeah, totally. And yeah, I mean, again, it would be great to see a like 70s, late 60s Blade at some point. I don't know if it's like his ancestor or they just like retcon him into a different era, but yeah, definitely like that seems like it fits.
Yeah, definitely. So Tracy Lords takes her very 90s boy toy and his heat seeker to the meat factory.
Fun fact about that character, he refers to his penis as the heat seeker.
Oh, that was what he was talking about?
I think he was, I think.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that. I'm not an expert. I watched this on, like, I did the Amazon rental, and when you pause the Amazon rental, it brings up kind of the IMDb page for the movie, and you get to see, the name of everybody on screen. Mm-hmm. This character's name is Heat-Seeking Dennis.
Wow, that's pretty great. I like that a lot. There's a really great moment too where she hands this character who is like the audience proxy basically her jacket, and he just like looks at it and then throws it away because he doesn't know what to do with it as they walk in. And we're also introduced to Donald Logue's character Quinn, literally 5 minutes in, by showing him making out with someone and getting a blowjob at the same time, something the cowards at Marvel would never do today.
Right. Yeah, it is kind of fun to see all the hard R stuff in this. Yeah, I know, I guess we got the Deadpool movies that are like they kind of play around with some of this stuff, but yeah, it is a way harder R than these movies usually are.
Yeah. And Donald Logue, I mean, it's already an incredible movie, but he's such a bright spot for me. I love Donald
This guy
Logue.
rules. Yeah, he's great, and the and again, I think that there's a more comedy intensive version of this movie where this character constantly getting chopped up is like played for more laughs. But already, I do love it that this character just survives everything and just gets more and more mutilated as the movie goes. It's really a blast.
It really is. He talked about getting cast because he had like long hair and went in for his audition with it braided like Snoop Dogg, and he had a cowboy hat on, and he walked into this waiting room full of guys in polo shirts and Dockers, and Norrington was like, "That's the guy."
Yeah. That makes total sense. I know, he's such a fun scumbag.
Yeah, and the part of Quinn was actually kind of negligible at first, but he and Dorf kind of found a rhythm and became actual buddies. He said that they still hang out together.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And
Love
so
that.
they just kept pushing it farther, go be funny. And yeah, I mean, there definitely is a even more heightened version of this character, but he is a great like comic relief moment pretty frequently in this movie. Keeps things from getting too grim, too serious. So we get this bloodbath scene, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Starts off with the
Iconic.
"What's wrong, baby?"
Yeah, this is such a fun scene. I mean, yeah, I think anybody around our age, you could mention the Blade blood rave, and everyone knows what you're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, just like such a blast, such a like fun, of course vampires do this moment.
Yeah.
I love it. It's a blast. And,
That's right.
The fact that the movie stays great after this awesome opening is a testament to how good it is. Because,
Seriously,
yeah,
it sets the bar so high.
Yeah, I know. How do you top it?
And they managed somehow. Snipes said the extras, they had to actually sit around in the blood, especially if you were one of those ones who rushed and raised your hand like, "I'll be in front, take me." And then he laughed and said, "It was a tough gig. They couldn't change during lunch. They couldn't wipe it off for continuity. I applaud them. Thank y'all so much. I mean, we thanked them at the time, but I'm doing it again."
Yeah, I would love to hear a firsthand account of what it was like to be one of the blood rave extras.
Oh, man. I can't even imagine. Goyer, he also talked about it, but he said that not only was it sticky, but it also smelled terrible. The heat, the corn syrup, just really... I can imagine it being terrible.
Yeah. Worth
But
it.
pays
though.
off.
Worth
Pays
it.
off. Exactly. It is an incredible damn intro. The fight sequence, the smiles, the thrown glaive. So funny when Donald Logue was talking about this scene and he was like, "I didn't want to deal with what the extras did, so I was kind of off to the side for all of the blood stuff." But Blade wins, of course. He stakes Quinn to the wall, then burns him, but spares the human we came in with as the cops arrive. And this is... I don't think that he talks at all in this opening sequence, but you get so much characterization from the smile when things kick off to his sparing this human, all of the important things about Blade you get without him even talking.
I think he says at some point, he says to Donald Logue, "I'm tired of chopping you up. I'm going to burn you this time." And then you throw some sort of firebomb at him. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the fact that you see that this guy enjoys this. He likes killing vampires. He's not Batman, who was tortured through all of his crime fighting. He's into it. Yeah, I think that's such a fun part of his character.
We follow the corpse of Quinn to the hospital, which starts gesturing at some cliche romance subplot, which I really like as a fake out to get you to let down your guard. You're like, all right, settle in. They got to set this nonsense up. And then chomp! Quinn corpse bites that guy's dang neck out. In the commentary, Peter Frankfurt was telling this story about how Donald Logue broke his jaw in a motorcycle accident years before. And during the fight in the hospital, he fell in a way that dislocated it again. And so he's screaming, and everyone thinks it's part of the movie for a second. And then they're like, "Oh, he's serious. We have to rush this nude man under third-degree burn makeup to the emergency room at 8:30 in the morning on a Monday."
Wow.
Doesn't sound like a fun experience, but he said that they basically gave him enough morphine to slap his jaw back into place and send him back to set.
I had no idea that happened. Wild.
Yeah. So Quinn runs out screaming. He bites Dr. Karen as he flees, but Blade arrives to finish him off. And one of my very favorite jokes in this whole movie is right at the beginning, because it is incredible for a charred vampire corpse to call Blade a freak.
Yeah, I love that the charred corpse talks. It's so funny that he's still alive. It rules.
It's also very funny when Blade literally chucks Karen out the window across the street and you watch her like bounce off of the other building.
It kind of reminds me of later, Deacon Frost like throws a kid, has like a kid he has hostage and just like fastball pitches her into the middle of the street. It's so brutal.
Iconic. We do get a great intro to Whistler as well. Like we said, he's jamming to Credence and then he injects Karen with straight up garlic to fight her impending vampirism, which I find very funny.
Yeah, this movie has a lot of people getting a painful injection. I think Blade is always injecting himself with various serums.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's a lot of like someone getting an injection and just like you seeing it how much it hurts them. It's it's pretty wild, and you know, she's great, but nobody gets a painful injection like Wesley. He really sells it.
Very true. We also get to meet the Vampire Council. Udo Kier, incredible as always here as Dragon Eddie, which is a very cool vampire name. He said that he was cast because of his roles in Flesh for Frankenstein and Blood for Dracula, both of which I like quite a bit. So the council is pissed about Blade. They're also pissed about Deacon Frost, who's the owner of the nightclub, who's breaking the treaty that the vampires have with human politicians about gathering in numbers. And, you know, you pitched a Blade prequel. I'm thinking that I want a Zodiac-style investigative journalism movie about uncovering this treaty.
Dang, yeah. Love that. Yeah, they have those comics, Gotham PD, that's like the on-the-ground cops in Gotham while all the Batman shit is going on. I would love to see that for this. I would love to see, just the hardened detectives that have to clean up vampire crimes.
Yeah, and also in the background, Blade is there and fighting.
And then, you see Blade every couple minutes kicking ass. They wave to him. There goes Blade.
There's Blade. Oh,
Blade.
What a rascal. Mm-hmm. But Deacon is a half-blood, which means that he is a turned human instead of being born a vampire, and they make no bones about rubbing this in his face, but he wants to emerge from the metaphorical shadows and rule the humans.
Yeah, I do like all the Vampire Council stuff in this. Sometimes that, like, let's see what the villains are doing stuff is kind of a snooze, but I really like it here. Yeah, Udo Kier's great. And, I don't know. I like it. I'm into it. And, this is a good example of them, like, building their own bits of vampire lore. I think it really works.
Blade, meanwhile, is fencing the watches and stuff that he got from the vampires. You got to pay for the anti-vampire serum somehow. And like he says, they're not exactly the March of Dimes. Karen wakes up, though. She scares herself with Blade's sword's security system of tiny swords in the handle that pop out, which makes me laugh every time.
Yeah, love it. And I love how often that comes back. It kind of like saves the day in the end. Yeah, this like trick sword is so cool.
The sword had a long history in the original script. It had killed Lamagra 1,000 years ago and was handed down between vampire hunters. But I think it just works as a cool sword here.
Oh, yeah, totally.
She also stumbles on Blade getting anti-vampire serumed, and they're properly introduced after chasing her down. Blade's quiet drop in the background while she's talking to Whistler is very funny and also good. Like it like you said, it's cheesy, but in a way where I'm like, yes, good. You need a little, some amount of cheese in this.
Yeah, they know they're doing it. It feels intentional and in a way that like makes it really fun.
Yeah. He also tells her to make herself scarce and to kill herself if she finds herself turning, which is pretty intense.
Right.
Short diversion to Deacon Frost translating the ancient vampire texts. You know there's nothing good on those.
Yeah, I love later in the movie we see all the, like, whatever their version of the Dead Sea Scrolls is, like, hanging in that museum. It's so cool. That is such a cool, like, a unique bit of vampire lore and just, like, great world-building stuff. Yeah, I love it. Love anything with vampire texts.
And you get some fun computer-enhanced graphics going on.
Mm-hmm.
There's some great tension in the elevator where it seems like the vampires are following Karen. Then the person who actually intrudes is a crooked cop, Renfield. But Blade used her as bait, and so he arrives and absolutely demolishes her apartment, which really makes me laugh when she's like, is this really necessary?
That is a very funny moment.
And he just beats the shit out of this cop in the middle of a street. It's another day. I'm walking here.
Yeah. People are kind of blasé toward Blade. You kind of do wonder how, like, out in the open vampire shit is in this world. Like, does your average person on the street kind of know that there's vampires? I don't know. It is unclear. And yeah, and like the cops kind of seem to know that there's vampires, or, you know, that they... Anyway, they're like kind of blasé about cleaning up the blood rave. So you do wonder. That is maybe a little part of the world that I have questions about.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because, I mean, they clearly have a treaty with politicians. So how far down does that trickle? Yeah,
does the firefighter who has to put out Donald Logue know that he's a vampire? You know, because there's a fireman who they're like, put him out, and in a very like... in a way that does suggest that this is just another Wednesday. But also some of the other stuff is unclear. So
yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
The cop does escape. There's a great transition to night as they stake out the car, then follow him on his return, and they drop the amazing line taken right from the comics. There are worse things out tonight than vampires. Like what? Like me.
Yeah.
Classic.
Love it. Love it.
The doorman asks for their invitation, and here's part of what I love so much about Blade. His response to every obstacle is to just go through it. He never tries to outthink them. He just kicks their ass, and it's refreshing.
Yeah, all confidence. Yeah. Not a great tactician, Blade. I guess that's what Whistler's for, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And Whistler is also kind of just interested in fucking shit up, so.
Yeah, I guess when we see Whistler fight, he just kicks down the door and sprays with a machine gun, so...
that's your tactician.
Not big on the element of surprise, these guys.
It is a fun song. I like this like environment that he goes into. Every single person inside is wearing sunglasses, which is really creepy. And it was Wesley's idea to have the safe house entrance in the freezer, which is a lot of fun. You give Frost a message from me. It's open season on all suckheads. Another classic line.
Love suckheads.
And speaking of Deacon, the translation of the ancient text is complete. We got to look at his place. The rubber ducks in the pool is a nice touch for old Deaky there.
That is fun.
Blade and Karen torture the vampire archivist Pearl for some answers. The smoke from Pearl, like cooking in the UV light, really makes the scene look good. It's
and that's a fun little piece of practical. This like vampire that's under all this like prosthetic makeup, and they roast him with the UV light. Tons of fun. Love this guy's performance too. Love his like weird voice, and he like this actor like plays the comedy a little bit higher than other people in the movie. It's a fun moment. It's a fun like comedy performance in a movie where the comedy is a little subtler. I like it. It's a little spice, and it works here, and there's not too much of it.
I totally agree. It's a quick scene. They had to literally build the clay original on a flatbed trailer in order to take something of that size down the street to the fiberglass molding shop.
Oh, wild.
Yeah, and so it took a puppeteer for the rod-controlled legs, 2 small actors manipulating each arm, technicians to control an air bladder that simulated breathing, and then Eric Edwards, the actor, buried under foam latex and providing the voice. So a team effort there.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Way. That's so cool.
Pearl says Lamagra the Blood God is coming, which is a great name, Lamagra the Blood God.
Love it.
They're ambushed by Quinn and company, and you talked about loving to see these Dead Sea Scroll-style vampire texts here. This lady has no respect for these ancient texts, just kicks Blade right through it.
Just kicking him over. Yeah.
I also love the guy who's like, I got his pig sticker, and then his hand just explodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every trick sword moment in this rules.
Yeah, as part of my research for this, I was reading an old Cinefantastique magazine, and one of the production stills in there was just a shot of his hand exploding, which I was like, they know what gets people.
Yeah.
And then Whistler enters as well. Catch you fuckers at a bad time, and opens fire on him.
Hell yeah.
It's great stuff. This is where we get the subway sequence. Yes, he does rub Quinn's head against the subway train, which is a lot of fun. He also cuts off his hand again, which is very funny. And then they escape by catching the back of the moving train and outpace them, which fucks up Blade's shoulder, which allows then Karen to pay him back for the dislocated shoulder that he fixed at the beginning.
Yeah, a lot of fun callbacks. See?
Yeah. They quickly recap both Blade and Whistler's backstory. His family was killed by vampires and not quickly. I really love the moving camera in this scene because it's kind of kinetic and dynamic for what could be a pretty boring exposition dump. But they keep it moving. They keep it short enough that it's not too bad. It really works for me. I think that they know exactly the right amount of talking about stuff versus showing things to have that right, the exact balance.
Yeah, again, I think this movie is it's so great with its exposition. It, like, a lot of it comes naturally. There are some exposition dumps. There's a lot of, like, you know, Blade explaining to Karen that, you know, the vampires own all the real estate or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a pretty tidy little movie. It feels a little long, kind of toward the end. I think once they're like draining Blade's blood in the coffin, it's like, isn't this movie kind of over? But
I'm ready for this to start wrapping up.
But yeah, but as far as the setting up of the world and like introducing us to all the characters, it does such a good job. They should teach this movie in screenwriting schools if they don't already. I don't know. Yeah. I've never been to a screenwriting school. Over
on Team Vamp, however, the coup has begun. This sunrise sunscreen torture is great as Deacon kills Dragonetti.
Oh yeah.
It's just two great performances there because Udo is very reserved and trying to take it with a brave face, and Dorf is getting more and more worked up as it gets closer, and Dragonetti melts, then bursts into flames, then explodes.
Love
the trifecta.
Yeah, up until now, when a vampire dies, it's kind of just like when a Buffy villain dies, they just kind of like crumble to dust, and it's a little like sparkier. There's a little flame or something with it, but it's like that effect that you're familiar with. But when this guy dies, like, it does seem like it goes to a claymation model of him melting and his like throat falling out. It's wild. It's like way gorier than anything that's been in the movie till that point, and it rules.
Yeah. The microscope exploding in Blade's face is also very funny as Karen is searching for a cure, but instead does create another weapon for his arsenal. As we get that good news, though, so too do we get some bad, because Whistler is hacking up a damn lung in the back. He has cancer, which is sad for Blade. And also, more bad news, Karen didn't catch the vampirism in time, which, for me, is genuinely kind of a surprising twist. Like, you kind of assume that they just have that as a beginning thing to write off and then ignore, like, oh yeah, the garlic cured her or whatever. But for them to be like, oh no, that actually didn't work, and she's still like all jacked up and turning into a vampire, like, it's surprising for me that it comes back into play.
Totally.
This is when we get to the park scene, which is very cool. It's shot kind of like a Michael Mann movie here a little bit. It was Dorf's first day on set. David Fincher was on set as well because, like we said, he was once attached. He is buddies with Norrington. So everything was delayed. Dorf had been kept waiting around. He's already testy. The dialogue is stale to him from practicing. And so he wanted to just keep going. But Wesley wanted to look at the playback. And so they had a bit of an argument there. And Wesley was like, oh, I just lent the scene the edge and anger to make it feel real because he hadn't found Frost yet. Like, Wesley totally was like totally cool about it, which I was like, big respect to Wesley for not taking it personally that they got into this argument and being like, yeah, he just used it for the performance and that's what an actor does. I was like, hell yeah, Wesley. Deacon wants what Blade has, which is to be like a daywalker. And I really like that Deacon is like a fanboy almost for Blade. Yeah. He's like, totally. I know everything about you, man.
I know. And it really fits in this world where Blade is already the coolest guy in history. Like, you know, it's like everyone knows Blade. Surely you know Blade. And it is definitely funny considering how obscure the character is or like was before this movie.
Right.
Yeah, just this feeling like, well, yes, Blade, of course, the most famous guy in the world. It's a ton of fun.
Yeah, and then Blade says, you're nothing to me but another dead vampire, which great retort and pisses Deacon off. So he hurls this child through the booth into the path of the bus, as we mentioned. Just, I mean, it's a power move. It's a power move.
Yeah, and definitely you would never see that in a Marvel movie these days. You would never see that in an MCU, just a villain flinging a child into traffic through like a glass, like some sort of glass, like food cart or something. It is insane.
I would like to see that in more Marvel movies.
Yeah, start chucking kids around. Cowards.
Whistler and Karen are attacked not just by Quinn and the gang, but Frost himself, and Blade finds the grisly aftermath. This is something that I find pretty interesting because I don't love that it turns into another, like, Chosen One thing.
Sure.
But it at least subverts it in an interesting way where it's like you're chosen for a negative prophecy, so just don't go after him because he needs your blood and will be fine, but Blade can't resist.
Yeah, I know, and I think we do have some familiar story beats in here. There is plenty of original new stuff, but I think this is an instance where it's like we have seen this before. The
death of Whistler is good, although it's switched from Blade shooting him to Whistler doing it himself, although there's no hesitation from him, which is very, very stoic and impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And now, in pursuit of Karen, Blade storms in on his motorcycle and uses the energetic reaction of the new weapons to explode some guys. This, it was funny that you mentioned Big Trouble in Little China earlier, because I kind of feel like the way that these guys explode and die feels like an homage to Big Trouble in Little China to me. There's a similar kind of, like, mystical stuff happening right under our noses vibe. So the way that it looks like the guy exploding in Big Trouble, I don't know, maybe it's on purpose, maybe it's a coincidence. I wouldn't be surprised. That's such a, like, huge movie, and I guess wasn't at the time, was kind of a bomb, but as far as, like, film fans go, like, so many people worship that movie, would not be surprised. And it, like, does borrow pretty liberally for its tone. Sure. I do think the mom reunion subplot is a little funny, especially when she's like, Eric, like she recognizes him from the birth. Right. It is, of course, a trap, though. Deacon fucking with Quinn and pretending like he's going to chop off his arm. Fantastic. Another great gag about that. And they taunt Blade about their plan, reuniting Karen with Curtis, the guy from the beginning who's a friggin' zombie now. That was fun, where they're just like, oh, here's this guy from the fake out romance plot who's a zombie. He could be the threat here. Why not? She whoops his butt. She escapes. Meanwhile, they're putting Blade in basically an Iron Maiden for the ceremony. I really like. We talked about the industrial and techno that's been going on in the score, but there's a really great moment in the score here where there's like this fun, like, church reverential music happening as he's doing the ceremony, where it's like, oh, it's an interesting shift where they, like, treat this very seriously. I kind of liked it. Yeah, it's neat, and I do like the religious stuff, and I do like that like the vampires in their own way are like religious fanatics. It's a cool twist. The ceremony does begin, to Quinn's delight, who says, I'm going to be naughty. I'm going to be a naughty vampire guy. Karen frees Blade, and to heal him, lets him drink. And he almost goes too far, but does resist with a delightful slow-motion roar, which is great. And then he fights his mom while the ceremony continues and says, I must release you. Tragic for him that he's been searching for the vampire that bit his mom all along, and then for him to be the one who actually has to put her out of her misery here. It's intense, and it's nice that it's not lingered on too much where it becomes melodramatic, but it's just like, oh, wow, this has got to be, like, an impactful moment for him. Totally, and the emotional beats work, and it is, like, totally a testament to what a weird tightrope this movie is, to where it does, it does want to be all these things. It does want to be, like, action and funny and creepy and campy, but also, it wants to play those emotional beats pretty seriously, and I think for the most part it does. Like, this is a good scene. I think Whistler committing suicide is a good scene. Just walk away. That's a great little moment. Yeah, I don't know. It is wild how this works. It shouldn't. These bits of the movie should not work, but I think they kind of do. Yeah. One thing. So we talked about how some of the CGI is classic 90s CGI. It's not perfect, but the ideas behind them is frequently very good. Yeah. And so in this upcoming moment here where the ceremony is happening, the lightning is, like, destroying these vampires and, like, showing their skeletons in them. And then for the, like, souls to climb out of their bodies is so awesome. Like, people who are like, oh, the ending looks crappy. I'm like, first of all, I don't even think it looks that crappy. But then on top of that, like, if you're letting the way that looks get in the way of the intent of the scene, like, you're only doing yourself a disservice, I feel like.
Yeah, I know. It got me kind of thinking about, like, would there be any interest in, like, remasters of these movies where they work out the CGI a little bit better, or just give it a little bit more of a modern sheen? I do think that cheesy 90s CGI is kind of fun now. I rewatched The Relic recently. That has a pretty goofy CGI monster in it. And I think it can be fun, but yeah, I don't know. Part of me does want to see, like, how this stuff would look with more modern effects. Because, yeah, I think, like you said, that, like, the ideas are all really cool, and it's just the fact that the tech wasn't quite there. The movie had to be kind of low budget. So, like, yeah, like, that train scene is full of really cool action ideas, but just, like, looks pretty wonky. Yeah, and this is a good example, too, of, like, all of this is cool as shit. It just happens to look like a PlayStation 1 game at the moment. And, yeah, if they did this now, it would probably look a lot better and cooler.
It does also transform Deacon into Lamagra, but Blade arrives. He immediately dispatches Quinn for the last time in this movie, which is very funny. He snags his glasses back out of midair, which is, again, Blade gets so many incredible entrances in this movie.
I know. Does Quinn... It's Whistler comes back. Whistler's back in the next one.
Right.
And does Quinn ever come back in these?
I don't remember for sure. If they didn't, they're fools.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. Just keep that going through the trilogy. Just Blade chopping off this guy's limbs, fucking him up in different ways. That would be a ton of fun.
But Blade fights his way to Frost. He mentioned earlier that this hunt was his way of seeking peace. And this does play with, like, a Buddhist saying that they adapted about the path to reaching enlightenment being that you must kill your father, kill your mother, and kill Buddha, which meant that trusting the divine instead of direction from outside, because the Buddha meant teacher there. And so here, Blade's literal mother and his teacher, Whistler, have died. And so all that's left for him to achieve peace is his vampire daddy, the one who bit his mom all those years ago, Deacon Frost. It is kind of interesting that there is, like, a Zen underlaying to this. I think it does work with his martial arts in a way that, like, feels natural for Blade as a character to be like, I'm looking for peace.
Right.
Again, just it builds a level of cohesion that I think is really beneficial to the movie.
Yeah, it's nice. And I don't know enough about, like, samurai movies and martial arts movies to, like, identify all the references, but yeah, it does seem to me like this movie, like, is indebted to all of those. And yes, Blade is, what is Blade but a wandering Ronin with no master, you know?
So true, so true.
So yeah, I would love to see some sort of, like, you know, YouTube explainer for the martial arts and samurai references in Blade. I bet it's fascinating.
For sure. The fight is fun. Deacon has an instant regeneration, basically, and gets the upper hand. But Blade manages to get a hold of the explosive serum and launches them all into Deacon before the most iconic line of all time.
Boy, let's say it together.
Okay. Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Makes no sense.
It's beautiful.
I absolutely remember seeing it in theaters and the theater erupting into laughter.
It's beautiful. And it's so funny that, like, that happens before an insane balloon explosion of the main bad guy that nobody remembers, because you can think about is this crazy line right before.
I know.
It.
I think you can memory hold this movie into ending as soon as he says that, like, just cutting to the credits as soon as you hear some motherfucker's always trying to ice skate uphill.
Wow,
but yeah, there is a lot of, like, cool stuff around it and after it. Yes, Blade roundhouse kicking the last vial into his forehead. His cool kind of what looks kind of like claymation explosion. You got that great little post prologue, epilogue. There you go. The good epilogue scene in Russia. Am I catching you at a bad time, comrade? Great little line. But yeah, I mean, like, I think in people's minds, this movie is the blood rave, and then some motherfucker's always trying to ice skate uphill. Honestly, great legacy. If you remember but there's great stuff in between, but, like, I don't know. I feel like, again, everybody who is around our age, like, probably knows those two things.
And it's smart that they're bookending the movie. That, like, you start with a high note and you leave on a high note. And that's how you build good opinion coming out of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
it was originally supposed to be a Whistler vampire that Blade had tracked down, that like Whistler hadn't actually killed himself.
Oh, that's cool.
And turned, and they just couldn't make that work. And they were like, well, maybe he'll come back in the next one, which he did. So that wound up getting reshot. And then also the explosion with Frost was also reshot. In the original, his transformation to Lamagra sees him as kind of like a blood tornado. And they couldn't get it to look right. It looked worse than even what we got. And so there was an interesting speech from the cinematographer in the commentary where he talked about it being very frustrating for him to have to defend like the post-production digital work after setting them up for success and being like, the cinematography, like the camera work looks great. And I just thought it was interesting. I mean, it's maybe not fair to be like, oh, all the blame is on these guys, but I can see that feeling, like I can see that stinging to be like, oh, people make fun of the way that the CGI looks and hold that against the movie that might otherwise be a perfect legacy.
Sure. But yeah, but I think, well, I talked myself out of this analogy, but the thing I was going to say is like, you love to watch those old Ray Harryhausen movies. I think those do like have their own cool little look, but yeah, I don't know. Sometimes like watching an old movie, part of the fun is like, what were the special effects of the day,
Yeah,
and I think that if you can like look at it with that attitude, it is kind of fun to see some of these cheesy effects.
Definitely. Like I said, I like the time capsule elements of it. And so for it to be like, this is what the 90s looked like.
Right. Yeah. Basically.
They have a charm. They have a charm to it now, looking back, even with the ugliness. It's like an ugly pet where you're like, sure, he's kind of ugly, but he's my kind of ugly.
Of course. I don't know if this is on your fact sheet or not. Something that I saw that caught my eye when I was just kind of going down the IMDb for this movie. Apparently, there is a scrapped scene where the director, who I guess has also acted, has a cameo as Dr. Michael Morbius.
Wow, I did not know.
The other, some would say the more popular Marvel vampire character.
Wow, incredible. Who knew?
Yeah. Anyway, so they were kind of maybe even trying to build that shared universe from here. I don't know if there's any other like little Marvel Easter eggs in this that I missed, but yeah, it's kind of interesting that they were maybe taking a shot at a shared universe, but
even that early, very interesting.
Didn't happen. And of course, we all know Jared Leto is the perfect Dr. Michael Morbius.
They had to wait all these years so that Jared Leto could play him. And now, Jordan, we've reached the part of the episode where we sum up why this isn't just a good horror movie, but is in fact the best horror movie ever made. And I'm going to let you start.
Yeah, I think I can do it pretty succinctly. It's a horror movie that has it all. It has scares. It has gore. It has action. It has yucks. It has goofs. It has surprisingly effective dramatic moments. It has some of the greatest one-liners ever committed to film. Yeah, so don't be a motherfucker who's trying to ice skate uphill. Make it easy on yourself. Watch this movie. Blade, it's the best.
Absolutely. To me, this is the best horror movie ever made because it is such a unique blend of the incredible blockbuster bombast of an action movie of the 90s while still genuinely carrying forward the legacy of incredible vampire icons through the years. I would genuinely be like, when people talk about vampire icons, Lugosi, Christopher Lee, I would be very happy putting Wesley Snipes in that list.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No question.
He's so great. And for this to rely so heavily on his shoulders and for him to not just bear it, but to rise to meet it, to be so fucking cool. Like Wesley Snipes fucking kills it in this movie. And as great as the supporting performances are, because they are great, and as fun as the cinematography and choreography is, because they are a lot of fun, this movie rides and dies with Wesley Snipes. And for him to just absolutely knock it out of the park while balancing the several different plates of all of these genres that it is interested in subverting and homaging, I mean, it's just incredible. It's an incredible performance and it's an incredible feat. And that's why this is the best horror movie ever made. Jordan, I want to thank you so much for coming on
Yes,
this show.
thanks,
This was
man.
an absolute blast.
Tons
Tell the
of fun.
people where they can find you, anything that you want to plug, the dates again for your books coming out.
Yeah, Pop's Chocklit Shop of Horrors, available at your local comic book store March 22nd. If you're in the Southern California area, I think we're going to be doing some signings around the book. So if you're listening to this before March 22nd, keep an eye on social media for those. Youth Group is coming out next year sometime from First Second Books. I will be plugging that obsessively on social media, maybe again on this show if you'll have me.
There we go.
At Jordan_Morris on Twitter, Jordan David Morris on Instagram. Keep an eye out for all that stuff.
I'm really looking forward to Chocklit Shop of Horrors. I'm like I said, I'm a big fan of Archie horror stuff already. And I'm looking forward to Youth Group as well. That'll be a lot of fun. And people can check out Bubble, which is already exists, and they can go purchase that right now.
Yeah, there you go. While you're at your local comic book shop, take a peek for our sci-fi comedy graphic novel, Bubble. If they don't have it in stock, they will order it for you. Tell them to.
As far as my plugs, I am no longer on Twitter really, but that my username there, Little Horror PHL, applies pretty much everywhere. So Instagram, Letterboxd. If you enjoyed this episode, you can find other episodes with great artists from comic books that you may know as well. Like Cody Ziegler has been on the show, who you might know from his work on
nice.
Miles Morales and Spider-Punk.
He's the best.
He is great. I love that guy. Branson Reese has been on the show a couple times. I know him from Swan Boy. We talked about Q the Winged Serpent, which is another
Nice.
fun practical movie. Corinne Halbert was just on the show, a great Chicago artist, to talk about Possession, which that's a fucked up movie. so all kinds of great stuff, and all kinds of people whose names you might know, whether you're a comics fan or a comedy fan. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, I forgot to almost plug. I have a live show coming up. If you're in the Philadelphia area, come to Philamoka on May 4th for a live show where Paul Ritchie and I will be talking about Tetsuo the Iron Man. And not only are we going to be talking about it, but that movie is short enough that we have enough time to screen it first. So come check out Tetsuo and then a live episode right after it, May 4th at Philamoka here in Philadelphia. It'll be a lot of fun. And that is pretty much it. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.